Keep Smiling Through. Written by Ellie Dean. Read by Julie Maisey. The moral right of the author has been asserted. Chapter 1. Cliffhaven, June 1940. Rita held back the tears as she sank into her father's tight embrace, her cheek pressed against the rough khaki of his uniform jacket. Jack Smith had completed his enlistment training and was leaving for a Royal Engineers Army camp in the Midlands. It could be months, maybe even years before she saw him again, and she needed this intimate moment between them to convey how deeply she loved him. She was only vaguely aware of the rumbling engines of the waiting army trucks that stood in line along the heavily barricaded seafront. The shouts of the sergeant major, the cry of fretful babies and sobbing women, and the tramp of heavy boots were barely audible as she pressed her cheek to his chest and concentrated on the steady drum of his heart. She had to be brave, had to keep her smile in place and her tone cheerful, for it was vital she dispelled his misgivings about leaving her. Jack Smith gently withdrew from the embrace and cupped her head with large, calloused hands. His nut-brown eyes were suspiciously bright as he looked down at her. "This is as hard for me as it is for you," he said, his voice catching with emotion. "My brave little girl. There's no need to hide your tears from me. I'll be back as soon as I can, I promise." Rita blinked rapidly, determined not to cry. "I know," she said, her voice unsteady. "And you're not to worry about me, Dad. Auntie Peg has promised to look in every week, and of course Papa Tino and Louise will always be next door." His smile was shaky as he patted her cheek. "Thank God for Peggy Riley and the Minellis." He sighed. "I don't know what either of us would have done without them after your mum died. But at least I can leave with an easier heart knowing they'll watch over you." "I'm 17, she protested softly. "I don't need babying." "I realise that." He sighed as he ruffled her short dark curls. "But you're all I've got, and I need to know you won't take any unnecessary risks." She looked up at him through unshed tears. "Don't be daft," she murmured. "Fall in!" The barked order from a nearby officer made them stiffen. It was time for him to leave. Rita threw herself back into his embrace, gripping tightly to his jacket. "Be careful, Dad," she said urgently. "And don't play the hero. I want you back in one piece." He kissed the top of her head and then firmly but gently broke the embrace. "Not much chance of heroics where I'm going," he said with determined cheerfulness as he rammed the beret over his light brown hair and hoisted his kit bag onto his shoulder. "I'll be spending most of my time repairing machines in some drafty army garage, not dodging bullets." Rita's emotions were running too high for words, so she stood on tiptoe and kissed the smooth cheek he'd so carefully shaved before leaving the house. He gave her a swift hug. "Watch yourself on that motorbike," he murmured, glancing at the Norton ES2, which they had rebuilt together. "Just because I'm not around doesn't mean you can tear about on it like a hooligan." Her smile was tremulous. They both knew she would continue to ride the motorbike with ferocious skill and speed. After all, it had been Jack who'd taught her how, and Jack who'd encouraged her and her best friend May to enter the fiercely competitive races that had been held on dirt tracks all over the county before the declaration of war. "The trucks are leaving!" bellowed the red-faced sergeant major. "Last round of board will be on Jankers for a week. Move it, you horrible lot, or you'll feel me boot up your backsides." "Bye, love." Jack winked, turned swiftly away and ran for the nearest truck. Rita watched as the flow of scurrying men ebbed. She kept her gaze fixed on her father as he leaned out from beneath the tarpaulin roof and waved, and then the trucks were moving away in a roar of engines and clouds of exhaust fumes. She raised her hand to him, the tears finally rolling hotly down her face. "Goodbye, Dad," she whispered. "Please come home safe."
Sample complete. Ready to continue?